What is going on, guys? It's Noah here with Custom RC Mods. Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode, we've got the full review of the FT Simple Cub. And I know a lot of you guys watching are beginners or just haven't had any experience in this hobby, so I definitely recommend checking out the FT Simple Cub from Flight Test. It's an excellent economical way to get into this hobby, and it will teach you a lot about scratch building. But if you guys want to know more about the scratch build process, and specifically with this plane, I did do a scratch build beginner series featuring the FT Simple Cub, where we talk about how to get it from the foam board that you buy at the dollar store into something like this, which is the finished plane right here. Anyway, let's go ahead and just jump into my review. Before we do, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me if you could show your support. And also, I post pretty much daily, so I want you guys to stay in tune with everything that's going on this channel. Anyway, first things first, there's 3 segments to this review. First one is the build notes. We're going to talk about what I like and dislike about the build, as well as what electronics I chose and what I do differently if I had to build this plane or choose some different electronics later. So basically what you should do. And then we're going to talk about the flight characteristics of this airplane, the positive and negative tendencies, what you guys should watch out for if you are going to be flying this plane. And then finally we're going to wrap it up with a pros and cons list and just my overall opinions, my answers to your questions that I know you have about the FT Simple Cub. So stick around for the end for those. Anyway, this is a basic trainer plane from Flight Test, released a few years ago, and it is a scratch build, of course, but it does carry those classic Super Cub styling looks, and I really like how it looks from this angle right here, especially with the landing gear, tail dragger, you know, things like that. It is a nice looking airplane, and there's no denying that. But from the build perspective, if this is your first time building a Flight Test plane, this is basically everything that you're going to need to know to build pretty much all the planes you see behind me. There's a lot of these tactics, such as the folds, A fold, B fold, C fold, and the 45-degree bezel cuts that you make for the control surfaces and the wing. You know, you got your basic dihedral and fold over wings, but there's a few things that I really could say that this could be improved about. Like the build here, I don't know, there's just a few little things that I don't like about this. And first is this bihedral wing. I don't know if you call it bihedral, polyhedral, but it's 2 dihedrals right next to each other in an attempt to make it just a little bit less like angled right on the center part, so the wing lays flat on the fuselage. I see what they were going for. However, it might have been poorly executed, if you want to put it that way, just because when you are doing this, especially as a beginner, there's a lot of planes back here that you see that have dihedral in them, but this one you have to do 2 at the very same time, get the exact same angle, and it's a lot of stress and pressure. And I felt like even for me, as an advanced builder that's built over 50 Flight Test planes, it's really hard to get everything all put together and to keep it all going and make sure that it comes out evenly. But good news is that you don't have to get it exactly perfect for this plane still to fly and fly respectably well. It's just something that I feel like could have been easily changed and improved to make the beginner building experience a little bit better. Other than that, the wing is pretty standard, and it is really solid once you get it all put together. I'd recommend putting some tape over the top that would also give it some reinforcement, as well as you have rubber bands running on top of the wing, so you don't want the rubber bands eating into your foam. So I went ahead and just put some aluminum tape right over top of it. Anyway, other little things that I like, I love the doublers here. This was also a design on the FT Simple Scout, but it's made this really, really durable. You can see I've actually had a few little crashes and nose overs, things like that, that make the bottom part of this fuselage all messed up right at the moment. But you can see from the side view, there's nothing or anything, there's not even wrinkles in the foam that's like deformed about this, and it's super solid. So I really like that, and kudos to Flight Test for making this a really durable beginner plane from the fuselage standpoint. Now in the back is where I think things are a little bit less durable. I would recommend you guys to go ahead and take some popsicle sticks and brace your elevator with them, because you can see mine right here is all messed up. It's wiggling all around, as well as this through rudder design for the elevator, where the elevator has this little skinny section, makes it really hard, especially when you put a lot of strain on your elevator servo, to keep this all working together and functional. So I've noticed that, and I haven't really even flown it that hard. I've flown this plane about 7 times total, and it's it is what it is, I guess. You can add some reinforcement after this happens, but I'd recommend preemptively just to do it so you're ready. Now, in terms of the landing gear, that's a little gripe that I have. I've used the same landing gear on the FT Scout multiple times, and it is supposed to be removable. However, I'd recommend gluing it in, or at least bracing the inside of the fuselage, because you can see right here, it actually tilts back and eats into your fuselage every time you nose it into the ground, just like that. These wires will just eat back into your fuselage and tear your plane apart from the inside. That is not good. Do not let that happen to your plane. Make sure to do some reinforcements, and I'd recommend just gluing it in place. It'll make it a lot more durable in the long run. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the build. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, just a standard power pod. You can make it swappable, but if you guys want something really solid that's going to hold up crash after crash, I'd recommend just gluing your power pod straight in. That'll make sure that it doesn't give you unwanted vibrations or flight tendencies, as well as obviously just keeping it durable. So if you don't have any other places to put these electronics in different planes, then definitely glue in your power pod. That's pretty much it for my build notes. It's a pretty good design, and it looks the part as well. But in terms of my electronics, we are running a A2212 13-turn 1000 kV motor. This one is from Hobby Power, and it came with a 30 amp ESC, but I'm running a different ESC in here. This is a ZTW Beatles 30 amp ESC. Pretty much the same thing. I'll leave the link to this combo down below. It's actually $15 for the motor and the ESC, and it's performed really well. I run the same combo on my FT Explorer, as well as I formerly ran it on the FT Aero, and that thing was pretty fast. Got up to at least to like 60 or 70 miles per hour on a 4-cell. So yeah, it's really nice combo. Very equivalent to a Power Pack B setup, which is perfect for this plane. Then in terms of my receiver, standard equipment, Spectrum AR6210, and then these servos are Muse SG90 9-gram servos. Pretty cheap, inexpensive, and they get the job done. They have handled it pretty darn well, in my opinion. I'll have a link to all my electronics that I am using in this build in the description below if you guys want to check them out. In terms of my battery, I am running a 1300 milliamp hour battery from Tattoo. That's about the sweet spot, and it balanced out well with the 1300, so I definitely recommend it. But if you have something smaller or larger, I think it will work all the way down to like an 800 if you add some nose weight, or a 2200 if you shove it back into the fuselage some more. Anyway, in terms of other electronics that you guys might want to choose, if you guys want something a little bit more powerful, it's nice as a beginner to be able to throttle out of things. Like with this setup, it flies pretty respectably and rather fast, but there's not full vertical flight, as well as some things that you can get in still some hairy situations with your Power Pack B setup right here. So I definitely recommend looking into like the Power Pack C spec, 2836-8 motor from Turnigy that I run in the FT Mustang. I'll leave a link down to that if you guys are interested in that as well. It works pretty well, and that'll give you guys some more power if you just want that added flexibility. In terms of my prop, I am running a 9x47 slow fly, pretty much perfect for it, and has held up well in this plane, especially after I've crashed it time and time again. Now let's go ahead and get into my flight review of this plane. Again, all of my flight footage will be in the description below if you want to check it out. I think I just posted a video just about this recent flight that I had with this plane. Unfortunately, it did end in a crash, but that is due to a brownout from my receiver. I have this spot at my park. It must have some like extended like Wi-Fi signals or something like that that are kind of interrupting my frequency here. And I've had multiple planes crash on it, so that's just how that ended, but it was not the fault of the airframe. In terms of how this plane flies, I'm a little critical about this. I think that as a beginner, this may not be your best option if you guys are looking for something that's guest-free and easy to fly. This is just a little bit harder to balance than I would have liked. I thought I got it perfect, but it took me 2 flights to get this completely balanced out. It flew a little bit tail-heavy, and I was always fighting for control of this airframe when I was flying it, and it just wasn't as guest-free as I wanted it to be. So I added some more nose weight, kept adding nose weight, and to the point where it was too much nose weight, so I had to back off on it a little bit. And then it just kept flying tail heavy, so it just feels light and floaty in the air. And if you guys get up into like a stall, it does have pretty good tendencies, but still you're going to want to make sure you fly a little bit higher, especially on your first few flights before you get into it. Also, this tall fuselage does not like wind at all. It's acting like a sail. Every time I'm turning upwind or downwind and I'm going crosswind, it'll blow you all over the place, and it's just not that much fun to fly this, especially as a beginner. Your hands are trembling, you're trying to get this thing down safely. it's not going to be a good thing if you're flying it in lots of wind. It doesn't perform that well. As well as there's a little bit of a tendency to tip stall if you are running it a little bit tail heavy on accident. So again, make sure just fly it up a little bit higher so that you have that added flexibility when you're flying. You don't have to worry about stalling and crashing into the ground. But other than that, it does fly pretty respectably for a trainer, not overly fast. But if you guys are setting this up as a 3-channel or a 4-channel, I set mine up as a 4-channel, it should fly pretty well. Just make sure that you guys are ready to know this plane's tendencies. Obviously, that's just pretty much how it is. You'll learn with the maiden flight and things like that. It's not going to be that big of an issue for you, I'm pretty sure. However, just watch out for those tip stalls and things like that. It can get you pretty nasty, into a pretty nasty accident if you guys are flying and you're a little bit tail heavy. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this review up with my pros and cons of this airplane. First off, the looks of this plane is a huge pro. I'm a big fan of the traditional like bush plane styling, Super Cub styling that this has, and I think that it looks really good, especially if you take your time and get a clean scratch build. However, one thing I don't like about it is the overall flight tendencies. I don't think that this is going to be sticking around in my fleet for that long, because I'd rather build something like the FT Scout that flies just a little bit better altogether. Anyway, it's not really that big of a deal. If you guys are into this and you want it to fly, it will fly great. And it has a lower center of gravity in terms of looking at it from a side profile. The center of gravity is down here, so it does have some self-righting tendencies just because the weight is going to act like a pendulum and swing you back under wings level. So that might be helpful if you're a beginner. But other than that, I think that's pretty much all that this thing has going for it in the flight tendencies of this plane. So yeah, that's definitely a major con. In terms of the build process, build is very beginner friendly, so that's definitely another pro in my opinion. As well as the electronics, they don't have to be anything special like the Mustang or any of these planes over here use more powerful setups. This one is cheap. It is, and I mean, it works. It's not a bad setup, especially if you're getting into this hobby inexpensively. This plane is going to be a great plane for you in terms of the power setup and basically the financial investment you're going to have to make into this plane. Anyway, that's pretty much it for my pros and cons. In terms of who I think this is best for, I think this is best for a niche beginner. What I mean by that is that only certain beginners are going to have the best luck with this. Other times, if you're flying in an area like me where there's just always a bunch of wind, you're probably going to make some sketchy decisions and decide to go out there in the wind, and it's not going to work out for you. You're going to crash. And I would recommend, if you guys have a lot of calm air at your local flying field, that you're probably good to go. Or if you're willing to wait for the calm days, then yeah, this is probably fine. But if you don't, I think that the FT Explorer over here that I have just off camera, or the FT Scout, FT Tiny Trainer might be slightly better options just as a beginner overall. I built this just thinking that it'd be an excellent beginner plane, and unfortunately my mind has been changed. So yeah, just take that with a grain of salt. Of course, there's going to be people in the comments that might be thinking, hey, this is a great beginner plane. I had a great time flying it, and it was my first plane that got me really well into the world of RC flight, and like, okay, good for you. But in my opinion, as an advanced pilot, it took 2 hands to control it, and it's just, it was a little bit more less worry-free than I wanted it to be, if that makes sense. In terms of if it's going to be staying around in my fleet, nope, sorry. I'm going to be scrapping this plane right after this video is done. That's why I wanted to review it. And I'm going to be building an FT Scout that is not going to have any dihedral. It's going to be a little bit more of an aerobatic plane that's more trustworthy than this plane. So overall, if it's your opinion and you're thinking, hey, I want to go for the Scout or the Cub, go for the Scout. Please do it. You will not regret it. But the Cub is also a respectable airplane in some senses. So yeah, just keep that in mind. That's my review on the FT Simple Cub. It was a little bit all over the place. I'm sorry about that. I'm just basically making up my thoughts and trying to word it all perfectly for you guys on the spot. I hope it all made sense to you guys. But with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below if you have any questions, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.